Imagine this. You're alone in a kitchen that still smells faintly of oranges and late-night arguments. The refrigerator hums like a tired choir. On the table sits your phone, black screen, a tiny mirror that reflects your face back at you. Only, it's not quite your face. It's the version of you that performs well under fluorescent lights and awkward small talk. And suddenly, a question hits you with the sharpness of cold. If someone knocked on your door right now and said, "I can show you what your life really is," would you open it, or would you pretend you didn't hear? Would you kill the sound with a podcast, a scroll, a snack, another reason to wait until morning? Maybe you think you already see clearly. After all, you've read the books, watched the documentaries, tried the apps that promise focus, calm, optimization. You say you're making choices, but how many of them were pre-selected for you by the people you needed to impress? You say you're free, but why do your days feel like furniture that someone else arranged before you moved in? You say you're striving for meaning, so why does every trophy arrive wrapped in a numbness that feels suspiciously like loss? Picture Ethan from your office, a man whose laugh always reaches the room before he does. He says he loves the game. He posts about gratitude. But last week, you noticed his eyes stop moving when no one was watching. Like the whole stage set froze, and the actor was waiting for the line he forgot. Or Maya, your college friend, who followed her passion straight into exhaustion. She says she's living her dream, but you can hear the negotiation in her voice. If I keep going, the life I promised myself will eventually meet me halfway. What happens when it doesn't? A stranger once sat next to you on a bus gray hoodie, calloused hands, the posture of someone who's earned the right to slouch. He glanced out the window and said, to no one in particular, "Funny how people think they're moving forward just because the scenery changes." But why did the sentence feel like an X-ray? Why did it follow you into the shower, into your sleep, into the Monday you thought would be different? Here's the paradox you keep dodging. You're terrified of wasting your life, and equally terrified of discovering what your life actually is. You chase novelty, but your patterns stay loyal. You want purpose, but you don't want the surgery it demands. You crave authenticity, yet you're fluent, so fluent in the dialect of performance that even your sincerity has stage makeup on it. Who taught you that? Who winds your clock? Whose eyes are you imagining when you decide what to wear, what to say, what to want? Maybe the one who sees through life isn't a guru with a robe and a brand. Maybe it's an annoying voice that shows up when you miss your exit because you were rehearsing a conversation you'll never have. Maybe it's the silence that refuses to comfort you after the promotion, the relationship, the milestone. Maybe it's a woman named Claire who cleans the building at 2 a.m., who learned to read faces better than doors, who once told you, most people don't want truth. They want a better fantasy. Did that offend you because it was wrong, or because it was too close? If you looked at your routines like a scientist, what would you find? How many of your mornings belong to an algorithm? How many of your opinions taste suspiciously like advertisement? How many of your fears were shipped to you overnight, no return address, just urgency? When you say I, which version is speaking? The child who wanted to be seen? The teenager who refused to be ordinary? The adult who bargains? Just a little more money, just a little more validation, and then I'll be brave. What if the person who sees through life doesn't have a happier life, just a truer one? Does that make you flinch? You've been trained to expect uplifts and hacks, the kind of rescue that fits between two meetings. But what if clarity is not a hack? What if clarity is a demolition of roles you've auditioned for, of stories that kept you warm but small, of the comforting lie that there's still a future where you get everything without becoming someone else? So here's the door you've been circling. Do you want to keep living inside a version of yourself that wins the wrong battles beautifully? Or are you willing to stand in the cold and ask the question that could cost you? Not, how do I get more? Not, how do I look better doing it? The real question, the one that bites and blesses in the same breath. What, exactly, is the life you're living when no one needs you to perform? And who are you without your borrowed reasons? Breathe. Let the refrigerator hum. Let the night say nothing back. If you're still here, if your pulse hasn't retreated, you're ready for what comes next. Because to face that question, you'll have to follow it down into the machinery, your psychology, your hunger for stories, the culture that scripts your desires, and the shadows you've been paying not to see. You want the machinery? Let's open the panel. First thing you'll notice is the mask rack. Jung called it the persona, the social face that lets you pass through doors without tripping alarms. You wear different ones, like weather, the efficient you at 9 a.m., the witty you at dinner, the resilient you on LinkedIn. Useful? Yes. But here's the trick your nerves already suspect. A mask that works too well forgets it's a mask. The rubber fuses with skin. You start defending it as if it were your life. You say, this is just who I am. But why does the declaration feel like a contract you don't remember signing? Under the mask rack, a hatch labeled shadow, Jung's other gift. Everything you disown, envy, fear, pettiness, lust, rage, tenderness, you were told was weakness, lives down there like a city without daylight. You think you've outgrown it because you learned the correct words and the acceptable posture. But the shadow pays in cash. It buys your cravings. It funds your overreactions. It sponsors your I'm fine tone at precisely the moments you're burning. You feel disgust towards someone who wants the attention you deny yourself? That disgust is a map. You blame Maya for selling out while secretly wanting the same safety? That blame is a mirror. How much of your morality is just personalized PR protecting the mask from the shadow's subpoena? Now listen to the low electrical buzz that's desire. Nietzsche might call it the will to power, but the phrase is easy to misunderstand. It isn't just dominance, it's the pulse of expansion, the instinct to shape meaning rather than be shaped by it. You feel pieces of that will in your chest when you do something that is both terrifying and exactly yours. But notice how you reroute it. Instead of creating, you compare. Instead of risk, you optimize. You chase a better spot in a game you never chose, then wonder why victory tastes like hospital food. Who taught you to equate aliveness with applause? Why does the mere thought of becoming unrateable, of doing something not designed to be liked, make your stomach flinch? Schopenhauer throws a darker lantern. The world as will and representation. What you experience is a picture your mind paints, and behind it all runs a blind, insistent wanting. You scroll because you want. You plan because you want. You meditate because you want to stop wanting. The joke writes itself. If you think you're exempt, count the last 10 decisions you made and ask which were acts of clear seeing and which were bargains with invisible hunger. Even your nobility has a hunger shaped like it. Are you generous because you are free, or because you want a version of yourself you can stand to be alone with? Now tilt your head, and you'll hear another machine. Culture. Steady as rain. It scripts desire, manufactures normal, punishes deviance with 1,000 tiny cuts. You're not brainwashed. You're house-trained. You learned what to celebrate, what to conceal, which dreams are doable, which griefs require a password. You swear you're independent, but look how quickly your moods sink to public weather. A headline, a trend, a graph that implies your life is behind schedule. Suddenly, your breath gets shorter. Who benefits from your restlessness? Who profits when you feel perpetually almost enough? Consider a Tuesday evening. You promised yourself you'd write, or call your father, or simply sit with no noise. Instead, you open 12 tabs and visit 10 lives that are not yours. Is this laziness? Or is it a kind of anesthesia, an immune response to the terror of encountering your unperformed self? You tell yourself you're gathering courage, but really, you're bargaining for relief. You delay not because you don't care, but because you suspect that once you see clearly, you'll have to choose, and choice will cost you belonging. Isn't that the quiet dread? That honesty might exile you from a tribe you don't even like? Think of Ethan again. His eyes paused when no one watched. That pause is the seam between persona and shadow, will and training, representation and raw wanting. He's mastered the script. The crowd rewards him. But deep down, his life feels like a rehearsal he can't get out of. He tries gratitude. He tries push-ups. He tries a weekend in the mountains with a rented luxury of slowness. On Sunday night, the dread returns, patient as gravity. Is he broken? Or is the dread a signal that something truthful is trying to be born, and the costume department keeps objecting? Claire's sentence. Most people don't want truth. They want a better fantasy. Lands harder once you see the gears. Better fantasy gives you the illusion of progress without the indictment of transformation. You upgrade your beliefs the way you upgrade your phone. New features, same addiction. You read about boundaries, but won't enforce them where it costs. You cheer for authenticity, but keep outsourcing your values to crowdsourced certainty. You call it prudence. Your nervous system calls it captivity. You might protest, but reality is harsh. Not everyone has the luxury to chase truth. Fair. Yet consider another angle. Maybe truth isn't a luxury. Maybe it's oxygen, and you've adapted to thin air. You can survive at altitude millions do, but look at the headaches you've normalized, the fatigue you pathologize as personality. What if some of your anxiety isn't a disorder, but a perfectly sane protest against the lie that your life belongs to market logic and other people's unresolved needs? Here's a diagnostic that will sting and also help. Take Nietzsche's thought experiment of eternal recurrence if you had to live this exact life. Every choice, every Tuesday, over and over for eternity. Would you say yes? Don't smooth it with hope about the future. Hold only what you're actually doing. If your answer is no, the no isn't condemnation. It's a compass. The part of you that says no has not given up on you. But diagnosis without a root cause is just theater. So let's say it outright. The deep mechanism is avoidance of grief for the life you didn't live, of anger at the promises that misshaped you, of the loneliness required to become yourself. Avoidance borrows masks from persona, energy from will, narratives from culture, and calls the whole thing me. You're not a fraud. You're a complicated creature, surviving inside a story that almost fits. Almost is what hurts. Notice how your body responds when you read this. A tightness in the chest? A pressure behind the eyes? Your physiology is a witness. It recognizes the courtroom where you've been cross-examining yourself with bad questions. How do I keep up? How do I get picked? How do I feel less? You've been living as if minimization were salvation. As if making yourself easier to digest were the price of belonging. Whose table are you trying to earn a seat at? And what do they serve there except a hunger that never ends? You wanted the roots. Here they are. Persona that hardened into identity, shadow denied until it governs from underground, will bent into comparison until it forgets how to create, culture whispering obedience in the accent of care, and avoidance. Stitching it all together with pretty thread. See it, not to flinch, but to prepare for what the system produces when left alone. Because the consequences aren't loud, they're meticulous. cumulative, invisible, until they aren't. And if you're still with me, we need to walk into that quiet storm next. You rarely notice the softest traps until they've shaped your morning. The coffee tastes the same, the commute repeats its gray poem, and yet something has shifted. Preferences stiffen into policy, routines start making choices for you. Invisible forces murmur, "This is just life," and you nod, because arguing would cost energy you've already pledged elsewhere. Start with attention. You think you spend it. Your brain loves variable rewards, slot machine schedules, dressed as feeds and boredom. Once a signal is repackaged as a flaw to medicate with novelty. Microbites of stimulation nibble your day. By dusk, you've been nibbled hollow. You call it tired. It's closer to edited. When was the last time an hour passed and you didn't negotiate with a glowing rectangle? Identity tilts next. Culture swears, "Be your brand," which sounds empowering, until you realize a brand only lives where it can be purchased. You trim your edges to fit other people's carts. You curate, you delete your strangeness because it resists caption. Over time, please and perform fuse. Your face learns to predict rooms. A tidy story replaces truth, and the cost is intimacy with yourself first, with others next. Then decisions. Status quo bias whispers that familiar equals safe. Sunk cost tells you to finish a life because you already paid the entry fee. You stay in friendships that metabolize tenderness into sarcasm, jobs that sponsor your fear, cities that reward you for staying the same stranger. You call it responsibility. But responsibility without aliveness is betrayal, the domestication of once feral wonder. Language adapts under captivity. You start saying should, like a sacrament. You apologize for harmless wants. You label every hunger too much. You ask permission from people with no jurisdiction over your becoming. The more fluent you get in self-censorship, the more you confuse kindness with silence. Who trained you to translate courage into paperwork? Society scales the same pattern. A culture that confuses efficiency with wisdom builds institutions that move fast and forget to ask where. We streamline schools until curiosity becomes leftover. Optimize workplaces until humans become dashboards. Moralize politics until nuance goes to die. We grow allergic to ambiguity, so we elect certainty and call it leadership. Public squares fill with battles where everyone is branded and no one is seen. Your body becomes a messenger you ignore. Headaches turn into climate. Insomnia becomes identity. Your nervous system learns a choreography of almost rest, almost joy, almost love. You cope by forecasting a future that will redeem the present. Once I get through this quarter, you say. Once the kids are older. There is always a new once. Meanwhile, the now waits like an unopened letter gathering dust. A night you remember. After Ethan's promotion party. Confetti, speeches, glass-clinking optimism. You walked home barefoot on hot sidewalk. Under a bus shelter, a stray dog slept, ribs showing. You felt the absurdity of your life so sharply you laughed. Not at the dog, at the way the world could hold plain honesty while you layered your days with careful fictions and called it coping. Another scene. Maya phoned from a hotel where the windows didn't open. She'd smashed her keynote. After the applause, a stranger said, "You're so put together." And she felt like a museum mannequin of survival. "I thought success would make me less afraid," she whispered. "It made me efficient at hiding." You told her she was brave. She said bravery doesn't help when the door won't budge from inside. What do these nights produce? A quiet contempt for your own life, an erosion that makes no sound until a crack appears across ordinary things. You fantasize about escapes you never take. A small town, deleting every account, writing under a fake name, loving someone without negotiating your aliveness first. The fantasies aren't wrong. They're signals. But signals become static when you keep changing the channel. The deepest consequence hides in a sentence you avoid. If you don't decide who you are, someone else will decide profitably. You'll wake fluent in a life you don't believe, competent in a role you didn't choose, loved for a version of you that cannot feel the love. What happens to a soul celebrated for its disguise? The unseen isn't harmless. It is simply polite. Its politeness wins until you're ready to be rude to the habits that keep you small. The first act of rebellion won't look like a revolution. It will look like attention, turned inward like a spotlight that doesn't burn. Rebellion doesn't start with fireworks. It begins with an indecent kindness toward your own aliveness. Think of it as civil disobedience against the algorithms in your nervous system. You won't optimize this. You'll recognize it. First move, call your attention home. 1 hour daily. Sit, walk, or write longhand. Boredom will bark. Let it bark until it reveals what it hides. Diogenes scandalized Athens by refusing false prestige. You can scandalize your timeline by refusing to perform for ghosts. This isn't detox, it's a reset. Second move, a shadow handshake. Each week, write down a feeling you exile, envy, rage, tenderness, and ask what job it's been doing in secret. Hire it properly. Envy can point to neglected desires. Rage can power a boundary you keep outsourcing to resentment. Tenderness can dissolve a persona that confuses hardness with competence. The monster under the bed is a bodyguard. Put it on payroll. Third move, practice unrating. Choose one creative act each week that refuses to be scored. Make a zine for one friend. Cook a ridiculous meal. Record a voice memo that stays private. Let your will taste creation without applause. Sculpt your life, not your metrics. Train your system to feel joy without an audience. If your hands shake, good. Fourth move, renegotiate language. Replace should with choose or won't. It feels clean. I should visit my mother becomes I choose to visit my mother, or I won't visit my mother this week. Suddenly the sentence has blood in it, and your body can respond guilt, relief, grief that asks for repair. Real choices wake real feelings you can meet with action. Fifth move, a Sabbath from borrowed urgency. 1 day a week, refuse to solve the internet's feelings. Don't argue with headlines. Attend to local reality. Your neighbor's name. A stubborn tree. A book that asks for slow blood. This isn't withdrawal. It's proportion. Your sphere of control is specific. Specificity is a revolt against generalized panic. Stories beat commandments. Claire, the night shift cleaner, started carrying a pocket notebook. Each night she wrote one sentence nobody could like on her behalf. I am tired of smiling while men explain my job to me. I miss my brother, but I won't call until it's safe. I want to learn carpentry. Months later, the headaches thinned. Saturday smelled like cedar at a small shop that took her as an apprentice. No manifesto, just sentences that wouldn't lie for her. Ethan made a cut. He told his team he would not answer emails after 7 p.m. for a month and kept it. Week 1, he felt like a criminal. Week 2, he discovered time has a temperature. He cooked. He walked. By week 4, his laugh returned to his own body. Performance didn't drop. Reliance on it did. History offers louder proofs. Thoreau refused a war tax and sat in a cell. The night cost comfort and gave him measure. Simone Weil left prestige for factory floors. Viktor Frankl In a camp that stripped meaning to bone, chose one task, deciding how to meet the day. The point isn't imitation, it's evidence. People have opted out of counterfeit importance and survived with more of themselves. Sixth move, a costly yes. Choose one commitment aligned with your private standard and pay upfront time, money, or face. Learn a craft at inconvenient hours. Say no to the prestige project to say yes to the brave one. Tell the truth to someone who profits from your silence. Cost is the litmus of sincerity. Cheap yeses decorate cages. Costly yeses cut bars. Seventh move. Design frictions that save you from yourself. Put a typewriter where your laptop sits. Delete the app and require 2 steps to reinstall. Keep cash in an envelope labeled Future Self's Joy and spend it on experiences that deepen attention. Make the good path easy, the bad path expensive. Freedom isn't absence of structure. It's allegiance to structures you chose. Finally, one dangerous daily question. What am I pretending not to know? Say it to the mirror and wait for an answer unrated by others. Don't post it. Guard it like a seed underground. You're not performing transformation. Rebellion doesn't crow. It returns you to weight, to texture, to a life you can touch. Once you feel that density, the final turn becomes possible. Not just breaking the cage, but seeing why you built it and what it was hiding in plain sight. You thought seeing through life meant looking down from a safe balcony. The turn is sharper. The one who sees through life looks all the way to the bottom and stands inside it without disguise. Clarity isn't distance. Clarity is contact. Contact reveals the cage had a job. You built it to protect something tender, your strangeness, your longing, your refusal to be traded. Masks were crude armor for a beautiful risk you couldn't yet afford. You are not wrong for building them. You are done mistaking them for home. Seeing through life means thanking the cage and moving protection to what it hid. Meaning is not found like a coin. It is made by attention given without bargain. Decide what you will love, even if it never makes you impressive. The world doesn't flip. Your axis does. The fridge still hums. The bus still leaves at 7:15. But you stop outsourcing your why to approval and urgency. You carry your why like a quiet oath. Suffering doesn't disqualify joy. It deepens it. You tried to engineer a life without grief and ended with no music. The one who sees through life lets grief do its work, shaping attention toward what matters, sanding vanity to the bone, teaching patience with other people's pain. You stop asking for costless happiness and start asking for strength to keep your heart open where it prefers to shut. Freedom isn't, I can do anything. Freedom is, I answer to what is truest in me, even when it disorganizes the room. Approval becomes weather, not climate. You stop auditioning. You stop explaining your beauty to people committed to misunderstanding. Love finds you easier because you're no longer asking others to underwrite a performance you don't believe. Test it in scenes. You visit your mother and stay 20 minutes past patience, not from guilt, but devotion to a chosen value. You tell Maya, I'm proud of the work, but I won't let applause hold my calendar. Then craft a schedule where excellence can breathe. You tell Ethan, you're not impressed by his sprint. You're interested in whether his eyes move when no one watches. You text Claire a photo of the crooked shelf you built. She replies, it holds. That's the point. The paradox resolves. The one who sees through life is not cynical. Cynicism is disappointed romance in armor. The seer is romantic, without illusion, willing to vow to imperfect things, craft, friendship, the long experiment of being human. You get the bus stranger's line. Movement isn't progress. Agreement with your values is. When your actions rhyme with your oath, even stillness feels like a rival. Keep ambition cleansed. You will still build, write, lead, sell, serve, but not to be ratified by strangers. Aim at mastery, usefulness, beauty that doesn't beg. If recognition comes, greet it like weather notice. Release. Without the cage's panic, ambition stops shaking and starts singing. Death becomes an ally. Finiteness clarifies your economics. You cannot afford to live as if the point were to be seen living. Memento mori isn't morbid. It discounts noise. Spend hours where soul returns to body. Honest work. Brave people. Solitude that restores your name. Epiphany in one line. Life isn't a puzzle to solve, but a vow to keep. The vow: protect what is true in you and serve what is true beyond you. Everything becomes a tool. Attention is altar, shadow is fuel, language as precision, structures as scaffolding, love as daily risk. Picture the kitchen again. The fridge hums. The phone is face down. You open the door, not to a guru, not to a script, but to consent. The hallway is the same and not the same, because you no longer outsource the definition of real. At the bus shelter, the stray dog is gone. A kid practices, ollies, fails, laughs. Failure looks like belonging. You will forget. Fine. Forget and remember. Build rituals that remember for you. The point isn't to hold the feeling. It is to renew the vow. Then the room rearranges. People who loved your disguise drift. People who love your density arrive. The day grows textured. The night grows honest. When someone knocks and says, "I can show you what your life really is," you won't flinch. You'll open the door and say, "I see it. Come in anyway. Stay for tea." Seeing through life isn't escape. It's hospitality to reality. Fierce, tender, yours.